Hi, welcome back to Live Life Balance podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am beyond excited today to have Peter Brook on. He is the founder of one of the yummiest cereals that I really enjoy eating, and so it's called Lovebird, and I'm gonna have him really tell us how he got started. But really, after the birth of his daughter, he left the big food his big food job, and he decided that he was going to create a clean cereal with good ingredients from the earth and also fight childhood cancer by giving back 20% of his profit, which I think I absolutely love because I'm all into nonprofit and all that too. So welcome, Parker. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, and thank you for everyone listening. But can start off with a little bit about my story and how I came to be. So I used to work at a big food company making everything from Cheerios to Cascadian Farm to Yoplait and Nature Valley. And through that experience, I learned a lot about how food is made and the decisions that are made about what goes into those products. And I would say about halfway through my time there, I became aware of food as medicine with my own healing journey, battling a few autoimmune conditions and learning about the power of diet, which was just kind of the beginning for me. And obviously, there's a lot of other things involved with that healing process, but that kind of opened my eyes to the power of food. And I was trying to do some changes within the big company and create products that could be better or best for people, but was facing a little resistance. And so was a little bit like, what do I want to do? How can I make a difference? And then when my daughter was born, it kind of created this huge sense of urgency. And I kind of liken it to my Jerry Maguire moment. If you're from that movie where I was just like, who's coming with me? Uh, I want to make a difference. How can I make a difference? And I combined my passion for food, both the making of it and also the power of it, and really took up the mission of cleaning up junk food. As I think you look at some of the statistics, it's pretty staggering. Over 70% of our diet is ultra processed junk food. And it's no shock that over half of the population has at least one or more chronic diseases. And so there's a big link between it. There's obviously a lot of other factors involved, but I think the primary factor is what the food is that we're putting into our body. That was the mission. And then the fighting childhood cancer part, I wanted to kind of redefine the role of business. I was tired of business just being spreadsheets and numbers, and you really lose connection, especially with food where it's so emotional because you are serving something that's eats. I wanted to kind of redefine what business can be and use it as a force for good, and take up a charitable cause with a donation percentage that would make any former boss squirm in their chair. Because I mean, what Lovebird, our mission, why we exist, is to make a difference, and we do that through cleaning up these toxic ingredients from our food system and creating a best for you product that's third party tested. Literally, I think it's the cleanest product that's ever been made in a packaged food form. And then also fighting childhood cancer and staying true to that mission, which I'm pretty excited about. I mean, I think a lot of companies have these missions or charitable causes about, donating 1% of net sales or something to save the whales, and they never wound up doing it because they're never profitable. And we're still a startup, we're not profitable, but we've still donated over $15,000 to fight childhood cancer, which I'm pretty proud of. So I mean, quite simply, from the ingredients on the front of the box to our charitable mission, there's no gimmicks. I'm trying to keep it as honest and real as possible. And really, every time we make a box of cereal, I envision, someone coming over to my house and I'm serving it to them, right? And I want to make sure it's perfect. And there's been plenty of bumps along the way in terms of entrepreneurship, but that's kind of the somewhat condensed version of how I came to be.
First of all, I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh my gosh, if we could just clone you 15 million times and throw you into the entire food industry, I was just imagining like what our world would be like and how
Mhm.
much sickness we would not be having. Um, I just, wow. First of all, congratulations on taking the leap because it is no easy feat. Like you said, the entrepreneurship side and the vision when you merge those together, there's tons of challenges and tons of things to overcome. But I hope every time you face a challenge, I hope that you have that little voice in the back of your head speaking to you, reminding you of what you're doing, because you are really you are part of the change. You're part of like why I do what I do. It's just, oh my gosh, I'm just so thrilled with your story, but also just what your mission is and giving back, whether you're a big food company or a small food company. 1% of your net sales, if you really think of these big giant companies and then they're even not giving, I mean, that's just sad. It's really disheartening, actually. So one of the things you said, which I speak to all the time, if you are a client of mine, if you are a podcast listener of mine, ingredients, 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 ingredients. Read your labels, because 90% of the time, what you see on the front is not what you see on the back. However, with Lovebird, it is. And I've done due diligence just like I do with all the other products, but what you see on the front is, and how it's marketed, is actually what the ingredients are in it and what you're actually getting. And so that is one reason that if you are shopping around for a cereal, you should definitely be looking into Lovebird. Um, Also, your Instagram page, I love it. Your Instagram page is amazing. You have all these like, what can you do with the cereal? It's not just cereal, and we've tried lots of different recipes and things that you put out there. And we all in my family, we all have been enjoying that. So thank you for putting that out, because it's fun to see what other things you can do with your product rather than just sit down and eat a bowl of Cheerios, or, not Cheerios, but a bowl of cereal. So one of the things I heard you say, that I kind of wanted to ask you a little bit about is the ingredient portion. And somebody who has worked in the big food industry, and knows the like procedures and policies and things that go into that, what were some of the things that really like affected you in a way that really caused you to want to create change?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think I've been in so many meetings in my former life around how to make something cheaper and tastier, which really just means like how can we get people to eat more of it, right? And what you wind up with is something that's devoid of nutrition but super high in taste, right? And so you think about the conventional cereals or chips or whatever packaged food item, they're designed to get you to overeat. You're kind of on this hamster wheel of chasing calories and nutrition, but never really getting it right. And so I think for me, it's like rather than have the calculus be how can I make it as cheap as possible and as tasty as possible. And I still think real food, simple ingredients can taste good. And I hope people that try my cereal still think it tastes good. But how can we use kind of best for you ingredients, right? And so for me, it was like as close to whole food form as possible, no refined grain, no refined sugars. Really, part of my health journey was the autoimmune protocol diet, and that was what I used as the basis for Lovebird, which is essentially a more strict version of paleo. But my thought process was like, this is the cleanest diet, and if I could apply it, and it's more of an elimination diet, right? It's not something
Mm-hmm.
you're continue on for the rest of your life, but figure out what works for you. Um, Apply that to packaged food to clean it up, right? And I think as a result of that whole food focus, like what you have is cassava root, true cassava root. A lot, what I found, and big food companies, like as I've said, they use a lot of questionable commoditized industrial agricultural ingredients, but to their credit, like they label everything that's in there, right? Like, you have to read the ingredients, and there's some claims on the front that are, oftentimes misleading. But on the side panel, like literally everything that's in there is on the side of the box. What I found with some of these medium sized or even larger size, smaller size other brands is they don't label a lot of the stuff that goes in their product. And, my product's made at a shared facility with some other brands. And I was shocked to see what is actually in the product versus what is labeled on the packaging. And again, they're smaller amounts, but it's still a little misleading in my book. And so for me, I wanted to put every ingredient on the front of the box. I wanted to use whole food nutrition with cassava root as the base, which is rich in prebiotic fiber and actually some vitamin C as well. It's a root vegetable. Think of it as a turbocharged potato. And some coconut flour and coconut oil for healthy fats, and a little bit of protein, and then no refined sugar. I didn't want to use GMO sugar. I didn't want to use any of these what I call sugar science tricks, whether they're artificial or natural. I know the verdict, the third rail in nutrition is kind of stevia and things of that category, and they may work for some people, and that's fine. But for me, I wanted to make the cleanest, best for you product possible. And that was using all whole food ingredients that remove the inflammatory junk and then replace it with nutrient dense whole food or as close to whole food nutrition as possible, to help kind of protect your gut, right? Because I found in my journey that my gut health was kind of the root of my health issues. And some
Which
of
it
these,
is for most people. I mean, that's
yeah,
a good starting place. Yep.
yeah, and you look at the diets and how they've changed over the past 50, 70 years, and even the past 20 years. It's insane the amount of stress we put on our body. It's insane the amount of toxins in our soil, in our air, in our water. We're under so much more environmental stress than we've ever been. And I think a lot big misnomer is everybody thinks you can go like zero tox or something. It's impossible, right? So you're just trying to lessen your toxic load. And I think for my product was like, how can I make a product that does good and remove all the potential harm so that when I serve it to my family and my daughter and other people that buy it serve it to their family or themselves, they can be confident that they're getting the best product possible. So it's been a journey. I know that was a little bit of a ramble on how the product
No,
came.
it's no, I think that's amazing. And a couple of things that I use, you mentioned ingredients being what they are and what they are not. And something that I really try to educate people on is not necessarily the calorie factor and the carb factor. And, in sugar, I do like how they break it down into sugar and then added sugar, because I do think that's important. But the real sneaky thing about the whole sugar thing, which is one of the ingredients that gets you to want to keep coming back and eating it, because it is processed sugar, is, the fact that they can break it down on a label so you think that you're not getting a lot of sugar, but it's listed like 10 different ways within an ingredient list. It might say coconut sugar. Okay, so you think that's good, but then it's got all these other words that are the same things for refined sugar, but they don't know what those things are. So instead of looking up to see what it is, they don't really investigate. And so, one of the things when you're first switching over from eating a lot of ultra processed foods, when you do eat foods that are clean and healthy and nutrient dense, they may not taste the same that they do months down the road when you actually start cleaning up your diet, and your taste buds change and your cravings change, and then you go back and you have that same product. It does taste different because our brain is changed, like the chemistry between the gut and the brain, and the signals that you're getting and all of that. So if you're someone who's just starting out and you've been one to want a different cereal try or whatever, give yourself time to adjust your body to accepting things that are not as sweet or not as ultra processed, because eventually, number one, you'll be more satiated. Number two, it will taste just as good or better. And it's so interesting because, like you did the AI, P diet for your autoimmune disease, it isn't a diet that you're on forever. It is something that is truly short term to help heal your gut, to help heal your body, and to put your body into a state where it can do its job, which is to repair yourself. So again, if you're someone who's struggling with autoimmune diseases or different things, when you go to your doctor, and if they're not recommending any lifestyle changes, you might want to just second guess and perhaps search around for other people also, because sometimes we need to eliminate things in order to change our body. When you were talking about, again, the things that you see when you were in watching how things were made and things that aren't really on the label that are in, I find one of those ingredients to be natural flavors. And I would love to hear your take and your conversation on that, because what from my research and my experience personally, natural flavors is a word, or words that can hide a lot of stuff, chemical based. If it's lemon natural flavor, well, why isn't it just a lemon or a lemon essential oil, a lemon is, something. So what
Hmm.
is your knowledge on, natural flavors in the big world industry?
Yeah, I think it's a great question and kind of a rabbit hole. But I think like one story that sticks out to me from my time in Big Food, I remember specifically being in a meeting talking about a new yogurt that we're going to launch. And I asked a question like, why can't we just use like real strawberries? Like, isn't that enough? And they're like, well, strawberries don't really have much flavor. And I was kind of in shock because I was like, if anyone's ever eaten a strawberry, like a juicy, ripe strawberry, they're phenomenal. And I think what has happened, natural flavors have really co-opted taste buds, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so you ask kids like, what does a grape taste like, or what does a watermelon taste like, or even a banana taste like? And if they are eating a lot of ultra processed food and candy and things like that, like their taste buds are skewed, right? Like it's super high sugar, it's super high potency flavor. Um, and really natural flavors, like similar to how I feel about sucralose and all these other like artificial sweeteners, and now this new wave of natural sweeteners, like the processing is the same, just the base is a little different. And so artificial flavors are, crude oil derived, but also a bunch of other really suspect things within it. And then natural flavors, really that label, especially if it's just labeled as natural flavor. Some companies do label like natural lemon flavor or
Mm-hmm.
natural flavor, which there's some romance copy to that. Like it's a little bit better, I guess. But like natural flavors, they can contain up to 100 different ingredients, a lot of processing agents, a lot of solvents, a lot of things that essentially take some form of a natural compound and then go through some sort of laboratory process. I've been to these flavor houses, and it's like they're like it's like a
Chemists.
medical hospital, right? Like it's crazy. Everybody's in lab coats with glasses and all this equipment and these big machines that are making these things. And the fact that you don't know what's in it, legal will never tell you what's in it.
Mm.
It's kind of this black box. And I think, that's my experience on like the other side of the firewall. And then being in these facilities that make the product, I was actually shocked when I saw a very popular grain-free cereal that uses natural flavors. I saw their actual like inbound container of it, and it was 80% natural, 20% artificial, but they label it as natural. Like there's a lot of like,
There's just loopholes. It's, to me, it's a term for a loophole to give the company permission to make a concoction that they don't have to disclose. And we think that we're doing a good thing because it says natural, right? And so the buyer or the consumer, when they're newbies and they don't know what they're looking for, they see that word and they're like, oh, well, it's natural, so it has to be good, right? Or,
yeah,
and so it's the same thing with fragrance and products. So I always shout from the rooftops when you're looking at ingredients. If you spot natural flavors, you spot fragrance. For me personally, it's an out, it's a no, because that means that I don't trust you, because I don't know if you're actually an honest company, you would just list what's in there. And I've even called a few companies for products that are really good. I mean, they have good potential, but they had natural flavors. So I called and they don't have an answer. They won't disclose. And it's like, so you're selling this bottle of whatever for $3 because you've got all these claims that it's prebiotic and probiotic and blah, blah, whatever. Yet you have the nat and it's like minimal ingredients, five, but one of them's natural flavors. So to me, it's like you're trying to do a good job, but then why would you wreck it with just that one thing? And again, even if you're trying to tell me it's all organic, it still doesn't make sense to me.
yeah. And I think like the organic portion of it does like help a little bit, but I agree with you, right? Like there are ways to make something taste great without natural flavors. And really they use it because it's high potency flavor delivery. So it's very
Sure.
flavorful. And as you pointed out eloquently, like they really should be called natural fragrances. Like they're not, they're an aroma, right? Like
Right.
it's like when you open a box, you smell the strawberry, you smell the blueberry. So there's not really much of like a compound in there to deliver true taste.
Right.
Uh, but it's more of an aroma that your nose picks up on and interprets his taste. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It's that high potency taste delivery, and it's also shelf life. Like things with natural flavors will retain their flavor longer, and so a lot of these companies want unlimited shelf life and products that never go bad because they're using kind of like Frankenstein ingredients that are engineered for high taste and high shelf life. And so for me, I mean, it was like I get the argument of some people are like, hey, I found something that really works for me and it had some natural flavors. Otherwise, I wouldn't eat it. Like that's a decision you make. Everybody does their own
Sure.
math and what works for them.
Absolutely. Yep.
But for me, I want to provide options that you don't have to make that trade off. Like you can have something that tastes really good, but doesn't have anything that's like a gray area or a loophole that, someone could be putting in something that doesn't work for your body and it would take very long. And as you know, with your clients and your own journey with your family, like it's a long process to figure out what's the root cause, right? And oftentimes there's a couple things going on, but the more black boxes, the more loopholes you're dealing with, the harder it is to pinpoint it because it could be an ingredient in that natural flavor that you don't even know what it is, that's triggering some sort of reaction, right?
Right.
So for me, it's put them all in the front of the box, every single ingredient, use real food from the earth, no sugar science, no lab tricks, and just make food from food. Simple, right?
It sounds pretty simple. One of the things I really wanted to touch on was soil, because I heard you mention, and I've read a little bit about some of your, posts and stuff, and it's something that's been top of mind for me for the last couple of years, learning about our soil and the depletion of nutrients in our soils. And I don't have, this is not my expertise at all, but I really kind of drew some conclusions from some of the research I did, and so I'm just curious. Um, what your knowledge is about the depletion of nutrients and minerals in our soil and what is causing that.
Yeah, I mean, that is another great question with many different paths. And I think really at the root of it is our industrial agriculture complex that has created and has put efficiency above quality. And what you're getting is like nutrient deficient ingredients grown in nutrient deficient soil that are then processed to the extent that they are an isolated compound, right? So something that people talk a lot about, or I talk a lot about, is cassava, right? Because it's an ingredient that we use. And a lot of other competitors or other products out there use tapioca starch. Some of them label it as tapioca starch, others label it as cassava starch, which is just not true. Cassava is a flour. It's not a starch. Anything labeled cassava starch is actually tapioca, and it's another 10 to 15 steps of processing to get it to that. And they essentially isolate the carb and remove all of the fiber and all the prebiotic fibers and all of the other trace minerals and vitamins from it and just leave really just 100% pure starch. But um, to get these ingredients that are grown in poor soil, and a lot of it is this industrial agriculture complex. A lot of it is what we're using as fertilizer and things to treat and pesticides that treat the soil that are depleting the nutrients in it, and really just over farming and not taking care of our soil, right? And so for me, it's been a challenge I took on uh, wholeheartedly to find a cassava that is a true cassava flour that has all of those benefits still in it, as close to the whole food form as possible. And I wound up going around the world and testing 10 to 12 different cassava flours. So I all cassava oil is lowest, really no detectable. So for me, it's a pretty big rabbit hole to go down, but at a very simplistic level, it's our industrial agriculture, all the things that go into making products as efficiently as possible, that are creating products that are devoid of nutrition and ultimately negatively impacting our soil. And for me, it's like my new push is regenerative agriculture
I was
and
just
try.
gonna say that. Yeah, I've
Yeah,
read a lot about regenerative agriculture and regenerate soil. His name is, are you familiar with, I think it's Dr. Bush?
yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
okay. Yeah, he's pretty
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, and like I mean, I think a lot of what he has some really great content out there, but like glyphosate and things like that, and that's a label that I wish I saw more of, right? There are really 6 to 8 different crops that are mainly affected by that, typically grains like corn, wheat, and oats. But there are some other ones on that list. And for me, it was like, all right, like let's find the best soil possible that's lowest the non-detectable amounts of heavy metals, which sadly enough are everywhere, right? Like any that you get, any are the heavy metals in it. And so for me, it was like finding the ingredients that are most pure and then also making sure they're glyphosate free, which is a big topic for me in terms of making sure you're not putting anything in your body that's going to harm you, right? And that's another ingredient or pesticide that's designed for efficiency. And what we know about it is likely a carcinogen and then also heavily used. I forget the exact percentage of crops around the world that uses it, but it's like well over 60, 70%. And we don't really know how it affects our body. And what I found interesting in this process too is that a lot of it's like FDA testing of ingredients is like grass, which is generally recognized as safe, right? And a lot of these testing metrics literally only test that ingredient in isolation, not within the context of your overall diet, right? So if you're eating glyphosate in your Cheerios and you're eating glyphosate in your chips and this and that, and it's in your water, I think there's a study that 90% of urine samples tested positive for glyphosate. Like it's in us, it's in our environment. So no one's really done that study around, hey, your normal load of this compound, how does that affect your body? They don't test that. They test it in ice, right? And so for me, it was like, let's create a product that you can feel confident in that has none of that bad stuff. And then hopefully as we grow and expand to it in many categories. And I really honestly hope people copy what I do because that means that real change is happening, right? I would love to see big food companies put all their ingredients on the front of their box. I would love for them to get behind glyphosate free claims. Like I would love for them to do all of these things where Clean Label Project certified, which tests for over 200 to 300 different toxic chemicals from pesticides to preservatives to phthalates and all these different things in your food. And really is the highest badge of food purity. So, I mean, I know that was a long, winding road. I just think that, it's a fact of life. It's not something you need to like panic about, but it's sort of like you control your own destiny and like seek out products, support brands, support local farmers that have more control of their soil and avoid commoditized products and industrial agriculture type products to the extent that you can and your budget allows, right? And so, there is power in the people. There is power with your vote in terms of what you buy and what you choose to support. And you can see change through that, right? I think a lot of times people think this change is super daunting. Like, how can I make a difference as just one person? But you can. That's how change happens, right? It's many different people doing the same thing collectively. And that's how you get change, right? And I think just the people and the community that have supported Lovebird gives me a lot of hope for our food future, and that together we can kind of reverse the direction that our food system is heading.
I mean, that's like almost like a standing ovation from me because that was so good. Um, that everything you said, it just literally resonates and aligns with everything I believe and live by. And I hope what the listeners take away is a few things. The conversation about glyphosate. FDA, just in simple terms, they allow a certain amount in a product and they will deem it okay. But when you have, like he said, multiple products that have this ingredient, the toxin load or the toxic burden on your body keeps increasing. So, yes, 1 part per million might be okay. But if you have that, I'm just making this up, but if you had that in 12 different things in an hour, every day, all day long, off and on, your body can only take in so much and detoxify so much. And so that's where you get into trouble, where your body starts to go haywire because it can't take on what you're putting in. So that was one of the things. Making a change with the way that you purchase things is really part of the process in making change. I believe in balance. That's why my company is called Live Life Balanced, because I think there needs to be a balance in all things. And like Parker said, where your budget allows. And I get a lot of times people saying, well, that's so expensive. And you know what? It might cost an extra dollar or two, but maybe you don't buy that extra bag of chips and you put that into something else that's, a little more healthy for you. There's always ways to balance it out. It's just, what is your goal? What is, your drive in what you're doing? And then how do you make that work into your lifestyle? And so all these things that, Parker is mentioning, it's just something for you to start to think about. And I do hope people copy you in certain ways, because you're right. If more people took the amount of care that you're taking to produce something, we again would be in a very different situation as a nation, because as a nation we are suffering. And you're right, there are many people that have there's very few people that I've ever run into that don't have some type of health issue going on. And it is a complex picture, and it is multifaceted, and it's got multiple layers of what we need to be doing in order to reverse some of the things and really get us back to our homeostasis and where we need to be as healthy as possible. But food is first. Food comes first, before a pill, before a supplement, before all the external things.
Mm.
And the way you think about it, I think also your mindset and all of the stuff that feeds you off your plate is equally important. But to have you creating a product with such care, it's amazing. And I'm so happy that I'm getting this opportunity to talk to you. And I can't wait to see what you guys are going to expand in your line, because whatever you do, I know is going to be with that much thoughtfulness and that much concern and care about what, goes into it. So thank you again for doing all of that. With your daughter, was there something that well, actually, let's go back to you, because you said you had like the autoimmune thing. And so since you went down the rabbit hole and figured all of that out, do you still have those things going on? Were you able to reverse some of them by changing to more whole foods? What does that journey look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say ongoing, right? I think there's this myth that like you're gonna solve it, right? And
Yeah. Not.
it's an ongoing process. I call myself a work in process, right? And I
Yeah.
think if I like day to day, it's hard to notice a change. But when I think back to where I was 5 years ago, it's night and day, right? Like just in terms of my energy level, I had psoriatic arthritis and a ton of joint pain and things like that. And, it was just very difficult to move around and do all the things I wanted to do. And so when you look at it from a historical lens, like I've made tremendous strides, right? And I
That's
think
awesome.
my gateway, my foothold was diet, or, diet has kind of a negative connotation as like you're trying to lose
Yeah.
weight from
No.
what, right? And so like the things I eat matter. And then as I've built on top of that, like there's movement, there's stress management, there's breath work, there's all these different things. And, I think of it as like our society as a whole, like we're overfed, but like undernourished, we're
Yeah.
overconnected, but loved, we're overstimulated, but like we don't get enough peace in our lives. And it's just like there's a lot that's thrown at us. And I think, a lot of pushback I get on some of the things I talk about are like, well, where's the trial for that? Where's the randomized double blind study on that? And I'm like, we are living in experiments, and I
Yeah.
think you have to admit that there is a problem. Literally every indicator of poor health has exponentially increased in the last 50 to 70 years. And what has changed since then, right? It's all of the things we talked about with packaged food and ultra processed food. The fact that it exists in calorie dense form with zero nutrition for the most part. It's the quality of our soil, the quality of our water, the quality of our air. And it's really unchecked companies that are just running, our food system and our world, because food controls the world if you actually think about it. And so restoring that balance, and I think, as you said, homeostasis within our broader society and culture is important, but like you first have to do it for yourself. And I think that for me was like, all right, like what is my balance? Like what are the things that work for my body? Like the autoimmune protocol diet helped with that, which is a pure elimination diet, as we talked about. Is like, all right, let's remove everything, eat the foods that work for most everyone, and regain kind of a balance and add things back and see what works for you. And it was like crazy to see what didn't work for me. And I kind of knew I already had gluten sensitivities. Conventional dairy does not work for me. But one that I was really surprised by was like seed oils, and this was like 3 or 4 years ago, before this bigger, at least in the health and wellness community, like anti-seed oil um, push currently, which I agree with. And I agree with it on two things. Like, one, the ingredient itself. There's a doctor, I'm forgetting his name, but he was the one that essentially called and pulled the alarm on trans fats. And he was the only one that did it. And it took him almost 60 years for the FDA to deem trans fat as something that should not be packaged food. And they removed it. And he since has passed, obviously, but one of his parting words of wisdom was to watch out for seed oils, essentially, because they're highly volatile, highly radical, and oxidize really quickly, which causes a lot of inflammation in your body. And so when I started to add some of that in, because you see it on the label, like sunflower oil or canola oil, which canola is actually an acronym for like Canadian something something something. It makes it sound like a natural source, but it's actually, if you look it up, an acronym for some process they use to make it, which is bizarre as you go down this rabbit hole. But that was one that surprised me, where even today, like I'll eat something at a restaurant that's like should be fine for me. I was like, all right, like that was cooked in something. And now I ask more of those questions, and it's a lot, right? Like, like I said, it's a journey. I try to do the best that I can. I try to cook at home as much as possible. Try to keep convenient foods on option at the house to make better decisions. Right? Like if it's junk, I don't buy it, put it in my house. And so, there's a lot of Lovebird in there. There's some other brands that I like that add convenience to my life as well. And so, it's a journey. But like to answer your question directly, it's been night and day from where I was 5 years ago. I think the change and what I'm trying to get a better understanding of now is kind of my stress, which I think with starting Lovebird, I had stress before from work. And this, as we mentioned, like I get up every day and it's like, I'm making a difference. I'm doing it for our food, for kids and families that are fighting childhood cancer. And so that's a lot of motivation. But on some days it just feels like a lot, right? It's overwhelming, and trying to institute more mindfulness and just walks outside in the morning and before I go to bed with my kids, and just trying to put the phone down. And I think that's been kind of my biggest source of stress that has triggered some flares for me. But my diet, I feel like, is in a pretty good spot. But it's more so some of these extracurriculars with stress. And then movement was a big impact for me too, just getting out there and moving my body.
You know, talking about, yourself from a holistic lens, and kind of viewing out, and it is a journey, and it's a constant journey. There is no end to health and wellness, and that's what people need to understand. There's one step forward, two steps back. It's a dance, and it's a constant motion. There is no finish line until you're no longer here. That's the finish line, but it's like, while you're here, you have to dance, and you have to work on one part, whether that's your diet or, movement or whatever. And then you have to realize that once that's under control, other things will pop up. But when you have an autoimmune condition or you trigger certain things trigger it, right? And so it's just learning what those are. But again, it is a process. It's a constant moving wheel that you have to keep on. And this conversation is very educational that you and I are having. And for some, it could be overwhelming. But the last thing I want people to do is walk away and feel like I can't do anything. This is paralyzing me because they've talked about all these things, from soil up to products and all the way around. And so this is really just to start. For some people, it'll be the beginning of your education. And for other people, it might be something you've been looking into and learning about. And so this might be repeated information. And the more we can repeat stuff and the more we can hear stuff and read stuff, the more we understand the value in it. And so what I would like for people to do is there are now more than ever, there are clean products out there. You just have to search and due diligence. And so when you find a product like Lovebird, or you find a product like, something else that's super clean, that's what you bring into your home. Those are the things that make your life easier. When Parker was talking about convenience food, we all still need a little bit of convenience food, but there's just, what are you willing to bring into the home and not bring into the home based on what you can eat that makes you feel your best. And so the more Lovebirds that we get, right, the more products he creates, but then the more companies that catch on and start doing, the more products that we have the capacity to bring into our home. And it's a balance again. And there are definitely some companies out there doing good. It's just about learning who they are. And for me, that's a continuous journey also, because some companies are really clean and good and then they sell out, and then you're like, whoops, been duped, now I got to move on. But it's like, don't stress about if you're eating something and it turns out not to be what you thought. You just move on. You just, and your body does repair itself. So as you're moving away from certain foods that are triggers for you and you're eating healthier, more nutrient dense things, your body will recover from whatever it was that was being put in your body. But I do feel like just doing diligence by looking at your ingredient labels, researching the company a little bit if it's new to you. But where can people find Lovebird?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what
Yeah,
stores are you in?
Yeah, you can find Lovebird on my website, lovebirdfoods.com. You can also find the store locator there to find a grocery store near you that carries it, but we're at Whole Foods and Sprouts, um, and a bunch of like Fresh Time in the Midwest, Fresh Market in the Southeast. So depending on where you are, there's probably Lovebird not too far away. And I would just kind of build on what you said, right? And I think that's good because, you and I and probably some listeners as well have gone down many different rabbit holes. And what I always come back to with whatever fad diet is around, and depending on what your health goal is, mine was just like energy and feeling good, right? It wasn't necessarily losing weight, which for some people that is what they're trying to do, right? And what they need to do. But for me, I always come back to like, eat whole foods, read your ingredient labels, try not to eat anything you can't pronounce or don't know what it is. Walk. I think just like people think movement, like, oh, I got to go do, uh, you know, lift a ton of weights or run 10 miles a day. It's like, no, just going for like a 20-minute walk, like 4 or 5 times a week, like reduces your all cause mortality by like, I think like 70+%. Like, it just like moving your body, right? Like eating good things, moving your body, and prioritizing sleep. And there's a bunch of things you do underneath that to help enable those things. But those are the things I try to focus on because there's so many different things out there. It's hard to control for all of them. And it's hard, like, unless you have a true food allergy, like you don't know immediately that something triggers your body, right? And so food sensitivities and ingredient sensitivities like are different, where they could show up like a couple days later. For me, it's like a week later something will show up, and I'll be like, oh wow, like what did I eat a week ago? I have no clue.
Right,
Right?
right.
Hard to pinpoint it. So, but it is this journey. But like, start with those simple things of like eating whole foods, reading your ingredient labels, and just going for walks in the morning and in the evening, getting morning light and evening light, and all of those things should help with your sleep too. So, Uh,
you can come coach my clients, you can help me with my course because it's all the things, right? It's all the
yeah.
things that make us whole. It's looking at people from a holistic perspective. But with people like you creating Lovebird, it gives ease to customers, right? It gives ease to people who maybe are overwhelmed by reading ingredients or maybe don't really understand, and some people just don't want to, like they want to be a consumer and they want to consume good things, but they want to just put trust in others. And I think people like you are the people those people are looking for. And so if you're someone who is looking for minimally processed or not processed good foods, Lovebird would be the way to start for cereal. And then other ingredient or other products from other companies. And but again, as Parker expands, you can always know and trust that he's doing the right thing behind his logo and his label of what he's putting out there. So Parker, again, I thank you so much. One of the things I ask everybody at the end is a couple of non-negotiables. So for you to live your healthiest, most balanced life, it does not have to be food related. It just in general on a daily basis, what are two or three, one, two, three things that Parker has to do in order to have a successful day as far as feeling your best?
Mine is eat breakfast and move my body.
That's awesome. Very cool. It's two simple things, right? Two simple
Hmm.
things. Walking is free. Making your own breakfast is takes 10 minutes, honestly, if you set yourself up properly. So again, thank you so much for coming on today. I will drop all of Parker's information and Lovebird's information into the show notes. If somebody orders from your website, would you be willing to give a discount code to the people who want to try it for the first time?
Yeah, definitely. We can include that in the show notes, or you can
Okay.
use early bird 10
Okay,
for a
I'll include it into the show notes. So if you're interested in trying it, you can do it at a little less cost, just so that you can see how yummy it is before you go off and shop at Whole Foods or Fresh Market. I know in the Florida we have Fresh Market, Sprouts, and Whole Foods. So, but wherever you live, you might
yeah,
not
I love
have.
birds.
That's right. We love our best. How'd you come up with the name, by the way?
Yeah, it's a great question. And Lovebird, as you was kind of mentioning, like some companies like are selling out, and like from the beginning, I created Lovebird to be 100-year-old brand that I eventually will give to my daughter, right? And so
Oh,
very like like it's still 100% family owned. Like I have no intention of go raising money and from investors that want me to do this and that. Like to stay true to my mission, I need to have that control. And so when I was thinking about a name for it, I had kind of this big food brain around like call it paleo O's or cassava O's or something like pretty like stereotypical, I guess, in packaged food. But I kept coming back to the name Lovebird because it was a nickname I had for my daughter, and I was listening to a lot of Blackbird by the Beatles, which that song is essentially what I'm trying to do, right? Like take these broken wings and learn to fly. And I think that's the spirit of it. And really, Lovebird's built on like three core tenets. It's love, protection, and ascension. And ascension, by ascension, I mean like flight, right? And making people giving people runway to kind of live their best life. And so the love is obviously made into the product. The protection is, about the ingredients that we use. And then the ascension is just making sure there's no bad stuff in there. And so that's kind of, not dovetailed because it's a lovebird, but lovebird tailed into the name Lovebird. So a nickname I had for my daughter, Blackbird from the Beatles, and then just those three love, protection, and ascension kind of were baked into it.
that's again just one more reason to love you and your brand. And so if you haven't tried them, please take the opportunity. There's a couple of different flavors of cereal, right? I don't know if it's
Yeah, we
flavors, but a couple
just
of
launched
different.
Yeah, we just launched our new strawberry flavor, which is like the first strawberry packaged food item, yet alone cereal that does not have natural flavors and still tastes awesome.
Oh, I can't wait to try that one. I've tried
Yeah,
the other two, so I'll have to get
yeah,
on that and try that. So,
yeah. That one's exclusively at Whole Foods, or you can get it on the website. But yeah,
okay.
all great. But strawberry is the newest one.
That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you again so much for coming on. Thank you for the education. Thank you for all that you do. And I know, again, there's a lot of challenges, but please keep persevering through because you are so needed in in this life to live your purpose, and your purpose is to make a difference. And so thank you again for coming on. And for everybody else, we will talk to you soon. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.